This will make you bigger. This will make you stronger. This will make you leaner. This will make you faster. This will make you healthier. Yes, the exercise profession is certainly not short of claims and promises, giving hope to people who want more than what they've got. And I've been in this profession going on now 40 years. So can you imagine the things and the promises and the claims that I've seen over 4 decades? It's quite amazing. And now it's just hit the acceleration button because now we're so connected with social media and the internet. Back in the day, we used to get our promises through the old muscle and fitness magazines and the bodybuilding magazines and the health magazines that you got from the news agency, and they would see all these different ads for different supplements, pills, powders and potions, all making all sorts of claims. And today's session is not to say yes or no, or they work or don't work, but because that has to be your decision. You have to make an informed decision. And I'm going to take you through a 7-step process of how to make up your own mind on the information that you gathered, rather than just 100% relying on the reputation or someone else's opinion or the claim or the promise, whatever it might be. You know, you're an adult. I'm not going to tell you to take something or not to take something. Whether it works or not, that doesn't matter, because if you believe it, it will probably work in some way, whether psychologically, physiologically, or a combination of both. It doesn't really matter, because it's your life to live, not for me to tell you what to do, what to take, how to eat, how to supplement. And make sure that you don't become that person where you're pushing pills or pushing potions and powders and promises onto other people, because you will be the person that people will, before you know it, avoid. Oh, someone's here, let's go out the back door, because they're going to be trying to. It's almost like a born-again religion a lot of times when people come in contact with some form of new diet or training method or pill or supplement, and they want to sell it, particularly if they have a vested interest, if they're getting a bit of a commission on the side or some form of pyramid scheme, whatever it might be. So let's go through some steps that you can take yourself through, and my suggestion is try to keep the emotion out of it. And I've always looked at things or promises and said, look, if I didn't know what I knew, or if I wasn't influenced by my past or my current knowledge or other people or my circle of influence, I just saw it through virgin eyes, what would it be telling me? You know, what would I actually see? Because many times what we see is influenced by your current knowledge. You know, your future learning is many times limited by what you know, or other people's opinions or your opinions. And many times I've been proven too many times in the past over my 40 years to say that I'm right about anything, because things do change. Because what I've noticed in those 40 years is a lot of the shelf life of these pills and potions and powders, they're quite short, because they're on to the next thing and on to the next thing and on to the next thing and on to the next thing. It's like diets. You know, back in the day there was the watermelon diet, and then there was the liver cleansing diet, and then there was the zone diet, and then there was, even recently, there was the paleo diet, and there was the blood type diet, and all these things come and go, they're on to the next thing. Or what they're basically doing is rewrapping an old promise and trying to present it to you, hopefully that you forgot about the last promise that didn't actually work, and you're going to buy for the new promise. So there's always lots of money in selling promises and selling hope, particularly if people are in a position of they want something which they haven't got, for whatever reason that is. So I've seen lots of things in the last 40 years, lots of promises, all rewrapping, and I see it to this day, and you see it into the future. And some things remain constant, but if the old one worked, why do we have to have a new one? If that worked, why do you need to rewrap it and call it something else and make a bigger promise? So let's go through the steps. The first step is why do you want to supplement your lifestyle? Now, first of all, supplements are things that you take which are outside the norm or the mainstream of maybe exercise or lifestyle or nutrition. So something which is supplements what you're doing. So what are the reasons why people will supplement what they're doing? Well, there could be numerous. It could be, number one, is that you want to get that unfair advantage. You need that little extra increase in performance to get the edge on your competitors, like such an elite athlete. So now we're talking supplementation to get those extra 1 or 2% that's going to give you that little edge. Because a lot of time at that level of performance, the difference between getting a medal and not getting a medal is a fraction of a second, or a fraction of a millimeter, or a fraction of whatever it might be. They're small. You can take, they take their lifestyle and nutrition, they train to the ultimate 100% level, but they can't quite get it to that next 1% that will give them the advantage to win the gold medal, or be last, because a lot of the time the gap between those two is not that much. So it might be purely on performance. It would be performance for building muscle, or running faster, or being calmer, such as in archery, or running faster, for speed and power, or for muscle size, such as a bodybuilder, or cardiovascular fitness, or getting really lean, whatever it might be. So it could be a performance supplement that you're looking to give that little bit of an advantage. And you find that elite athletes are always searching for that little advantage they can get on their fellow competitors. It could be a health concern where you've actually lost your health. You may be battling with arthritis, or battling with diabetes, or coronary heart disease, or it could be a health issue. So therefore you're looking for things that are outside the mainstream, because you've done everything in your power to eat healthy, train healthy, live healthy, and now you're looking for those extra things to fight off that disease, or fight off that injury, or that pain, or that the things that affect your life in a negative way. It could be something where you're taking as some form of what people say, this is an insurance so I don't get sick. So you're pretty healthy, there's nothing really wrong with you, but you want to just make sure that you take some extra stuff to minimize the chances of getting injured, or getting disease, or getting a virus, or whatever it might be. So that could be the case too. It could be just something where, hey, I'm healthy, I'm fit, I'm strong, but I'm going to take these extra things around me to make sure that I stay that way, and to increase my chances of being healthy, fit and strong, and have a great lifestyle and a quality of life. It could also be something where it's not so much the elite performance, but you want to put on you want to get fitter just for general health. You want to put on muscle. You might be skinny. You go, well, I want to put on better muscle, so I'm going to take some a bit of supplements here and a bit of pills here on top of my normal food. So there's many reasons, and obviously it's a supplement. So before you even start to go into supplementation, and when I'm talking about the first question is, why do you want to take them? These are the many reasons, and which ones do you fit in? And if you fit in any one of those, then, and you've done everything in the mainstream of good healthy living and good training and good nutrition, and then you may find you may want to explore the opportunities that these may be beneficial to you. So what is driving you, and what is the reason? And many times the reason one of these legitimate reasons. But it also could be that, hey, someone's trying to sell this to you, and they're just convincing you, hey, you've got to have this, they've got to have this, and it's, you get a bit of peer group pressure, your partner's taking it, your friends are taking it, everyone's taking it, the big bodybuilder in the gym's taking it, the health guru's taking it, and all of a sudden it's, you may say, well, why am I actually taking this? Am I taking it for a legitimate reason, or am I taking it because maybe I've been influenced by outside sources? Or you might be taking it because it might be a good little business. I get that many times throughout my career. People say, I've got a business opportunity for you, and basically what they ask me to sell supplements, and obviously every time I sell it, they get a little bit and the next person gets a bit, and it's like that multi-level marketing type thing. So it might be a financial reason. So you just have to look at all the whys of why you're doing this, why you're looking at that, and say, is that a real legitimate reason to do it, based on what I want, what is my goal. So why are you taking the supplement? But more importantly, what is your goal? What is your why? Does the why fit into the what? Does the why fit into the what? This is what I want, and this is why I want it, and do they all match? So that's really important, to make sure you match your lifestyle, those mainstream things, with the supplements, and look at the what and the why to evaluate, is this something which is going to be something I want to explore, or no, it's not necessary for me. And that's not right or wrong. You have to make up your own mind. I guess that's what my main point is you have to come up with your why, and you make up your mind based on your life and your needs and your wants, and make sure that you're not sort of falling trapped to being influenced by outside sources that gets you to do what you don't really want to do, but you're doing it because that's what you think is the right thing to do. The next question is more of a high level overlook of the situation type question. Is if you look at the supplement and you look at your why and you look at the claims of the supplement and what it's promising you to do and what it's promising to do to you, and you have to just ask the question before you even dig any detail, go into the research, whatever it might be, is just ask the simple question: does this make sense? Is this follow the rule of common sense? Because many times, if it doesn't make common sense, it's probably nonsense. And if the claim or the promise is just ridiculous, and you go, like, really? Do you really want me to believe that? I can put on that much muscle, or is it more powerful than this, which you know is real? Or I can get strip all this fat off in a night, or I can get this fast, or I become that healthy, I'll be glowing in the dark. And you got to just have to ask a question where you step out of that emotional part of being involved in the promise and the hope and the claim. Is step back and says, really, is this really make any common sense? And I come across many products over the decades that are making really big claims. They're making big promises, and a lot of people, they fall for big promises. It's like one of those get rich quick schemes, or become a millionaire in a year scheme, or become super healthy, put on 10 kilos of muscle by taking this, or get faster and Usain Bolt, or what it might be. You just have to ask yourself, are the claims, are they really look at from a common sense point of view? Do they make any sense? And if they're not, they're probably nonsense. And you can go to the next questions and dig deeper, but a lot of times if it doesn't follow the common sense rule for me, then I've got better things to spend my time and energy and my thinking on, because every time I spend a minute on this, I'm not spending a minute on finding something which is actually going to will work for me. If you then say, okay, well, the why is something that the what and the why is something which is personal to me. It sort of makes a bit of common sense. Yes, I can probably see that will be the case. It is possible. It may not be probable yet, but it's possible that this could work. And my suggestion is never discard anything unless it's ridiculous. But never discard it until you've actually proven it to be right or wrong. So if it makes a bit of sense, then you may say, look, let's dig a little bit deeper. So the next question, number one, is, as we know, is the why. Why you're doing it, and how does that why fit into your what. Number two is, does it make common sense? Does it follow the common sense rule? Number three is really important. Is it safe? You don't want to be doing things that's going to be detrimental to your health, whether it be psychological or physiological. So is it safe? Now, I'm in New Zealand. And there are people listening we have students in over 18 different countries, so in your area it's going to be different. But anything in New Zealand or Australia or even the United States, is to be able to sell some form of supplement, you have to be approved by your local health authority. So in the America it's the FDA, in Australia it's the FDA. In New Zealand it's MediSafe, and you have to be able to get approved by the Products and Goods Authority, whatever it might be, whatever that's called in your country. So it's approved by, people say, well, my product is approved by the FDA. So yes, there's a tick there. So everything that is on the shelf in a supplementation store, it's not going to be unsafe, unlikely to be unsafe, if you take it the way they prescribe it, and if you take it in the right dosages and frequency, and you don't overdose in it. But anything you overdose in is not going to be healthy for you. So if it's FDA or MediSafe or whatever it might be in your country approved, then it's more likely to be safe and not harmful to you, unless you take it in the wrong amounts, the wrong frequency, or whatever it might be. But also be very careful. Just because it's FDA approved doesn't mean, that's not saying that it works. That just basically says that it's safe and there might be a little bit of thread of truth that that could be the claim, or the what it says it does could be, but you don't actually have to prove that it works. Like if you're a pharmaceutical company and you're taking a new drug to market, then yes, you have to be able to prove those claims, because a lot of times that's via prescription, and there has to be active ingredients in there, and it can't be just based on a theory. It has to be proven over and over again. But supplementation sits into a different category. It's you don't have to prove that it works. You may have to say that it could work, and how you word that can be quite, how can you say, tricky. A lot of times though, people will read it and say, hey, this promises that, but it actually doesn't really promise that. It says, it words it in a way that it can't be necessarily, they're not always necessarily held accountable to that claim. So just because it's FDA or MediSafe, or by the Ministry of Health or the Health Department, whatever it might be, says it's safe, but that's not conclusive that it actually works. And because you don't actually have to prove that it works, you basically have to prove that it's not going to be harmful to people who want to take it. And you may prove that it works in a theoretical way, but not necessarily in an absolute practical way. So it's unlikely you're going to get something which is unsafe unless you're buying it, under the table, or in a dark alley, or in the deep dark web, or in the black market, or something like that. If you're going down that path, then yes, you can see that possibly it could be unsafe because it hasn't gone through any processes to make sure it protects you as the customer. Now we come to the most trickiest question: is, does it work? Well, that is a tricky question, and it's very hard to prove absolutely that a supplement works. There's some prove that it works, and some it may work, it may not work. Some, if you believe you will achieve top work. Well, there's a number of things to consider when you have to look at a supplement that it works. First thing is you have to make sure that you're getting what you're buying. Because there's no little supplement police running around going into supplementation stores or supermarkets in the vitamins and minerals and the protein powders. No one's going around testing them to see if they work for you. Again, just to get on the shelf, you don't have to prove that it actually works. You may just have to prove that it's safe and it could work. Not that it does work, it could work. Now obviously they word it in a way that it sort of communicates to you that it does work, but really it could work, and it's based on maybe a theory, not necessarily peer-reviewed research, and a multiple amount of peer-reviewed research we'll talk about soon. But you have to make sure you're getting what you are promised. And in my time, I've come across many different supplements that over time, when they have been examined by maybe an interested party who's curious, or due to they've gotten complaints about it, therefore they investigated it and researched it, that in the pill, in the container, in the jar, in whatever it might be, it's not what they say is in it. Isn't that interesting? I remember one case where we were going back in the 90s where they were selling this powder, and it was promising that you drink this powder and you absorb 30% of the fat that you eat with it. Therefore, it would get rid of it through the body by using crustaceans of seashell live type of thing. It's had all this thing that absorbs the fat, and therefore you can eat fat and it will just go through your system and not be absorbed by the body. And they said in this was these crustaceans of sea life type thing. But when they actually studied it, it wasn't in there. It was actually talcum powder. So you're paying massive amounts of money for talcum powder, not what's actually in it. So yeah, lots of powders will say certain things are in it. So, but that doesn't mean it's in it because no one's actually testing it, and they may want to put fillers in it which are cheaper, but still say it does what it says. You pay full price for it. They make a bigger profit. So I'm not saying that's the case, but there has been a history I've seen, read about, and been involved in lots of different cases where that has actually happened. So I guess you have to make that decision of buying brands who have a reputable names, have been around a lot, and have tested the the challenges of time that can prove that what you're paying for is actually what you're getting, whether it be that vitamin or mineral or performance enhancing additive, whatever it might be. Because there is a lot, there is products out there that don't necessarily have the full dosage or if the dosage in it whatsoever. And is it? I know one of my colleagues who had a chain of gyms, and they wanted to be able to maximise their profit by selling a powder. So they branded the powder with their own name, saying it's specially formulated for this brand, blah, blah, blah. But actually, after a good conversation, because they're a good colleague of mine, they just get it from China. He says, yeah, we go to the same basic place, a place in China, and they just put different wrappings around the containers, and you can brand it your own way, but it's really basically the same. It comes from the same factory, but they're different brands. So it's not really a customized brand, and that's not always the case. There are certainly very legitimate brands out there, but you just got to be, don't be naive to that. That sometimes there's a lot of money in making in supplementation. I remember seeing a documentary on sunglasses, and they all come out of the same factory, and they put different brands on the sunglasses. So you buy this expensive brand, $200 a pair of sunglasses, and they come out of the same factory where they're selling the sunglasses for $30. So you think the $200 are going to be better quality and better product and blah, 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 because it's $200, but ultimately it's no better than the $30. It's just branded, so people will buy the brand. So that's something that you have to work out yourself to make sure that you're getting value for your dollar, you're actually getting what you paid. And it's not that it can be difficult to work out because you don't have laboratories and testing facilities to do all that, but then you may want to poke your nose in there, look at the history, and start asking questions to make sure that you're actually getting what you pay for. So that's the first step of does it work, because it may not even be. Obviously if it's not what it says, then it's not going to work. Then when you look at the claim, you have to look at, okay, so how do I prove that it works? How can I be comfortable knowing that it works or not? Well, first thing is to don't get your education based on a brochure, on a label or their website, because obviously they're going to tell you what they want you to hear to sell you the product, because they have a big vested interest in selling that product to you. So they're going to make all sorts of claims and promises to prove and try to convince you to buy their product. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just called business. So where do you go to see whether their claims are true or not? Well, you may want to poke your nose in other sites and look at, is what they're saying, is it backed up by research? Now, research is an interesting thing, because I'm sure if I asked you this question, when was the last time you read a peer-reviewed, published international research study? And my guess is that you'd probably say never. Because first of all, they're quite difficult to read because they're written in research vocabulary. I am a published research scientist. I've got a number of publications under my belt, and I know what the process you have to go through. And what I found is a lot of time with research, you go in there aiming to answer one question, but you come out not answering the question, but you come out with another 20 questions. And you don't get an absolute answer on that first question, because it doesn't always pan out the way you think it's going to be panned out. So when you're going to poke your nose into research, you're going to be very careful when people quote research, or they say research shows. You have to ask yourself, okay, what research? What is it? Who did the research? Where was it published? And how did they actually do the research? So there's some good questions, and I may have a little bit more advantage because I've been in that area. But you got to ask some common questions. What research? And when I say what research, are you relying on the research of one study, or are you looking at all the studies? So there might be, say, 100 different research studies in that topic, and you probably find that all those studies will come out with varying outcomes. So you can actually cherry pick the research study that you want to quote to prove your point. You can always find research to back up your claim. So there might be hundreds of research studies, and that's where maybe you need to go to an organisation which has a bit of credibility to it, and that releases a position statement on different topics. For example, the American College of Sports Medicine will do a position statement on various topics, whether it be training for children or training for pregnant ladies, or might be training for diabetes, but they also have a position statement on nutritional supplements. And basically what they do is they get all these, an editorial board of people with PhDs who specialise in that area, to go and read through all the research and come together with a summative finding of what they recommend based on all the research, not just the research that backs up your claim because you want to sell a product. So you could go to organisations like that, the National Strength and Conditioning Association, the American College of Sports Medicine, the American Dietetic Association. These are probably bigger international level organisations who do have position statements. And you'll probably find when you read through them, as I have many times, is you don't always come out with a black and white answer. Sometimes it comes out a bit grey, sometimes it's white, sometimes it's quite black. But most of the times it's somewhere in that grey area. It could, it may not, yes, in this circumstance, or whatever it might be. So you may want to go to an organisation who's looked at all the research rather than you looking at one piece of research. And that research you may have to ask is where was it published? Was it published in a peer-reviewed, internationally recognised scientific journal? Or was it published in a dodgy journal run by blah 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 in the back alley somewhere, and they call it something very trendy or very convincing? I know organisations in the past have named their organisation and they've called it something like the International Sports Medicine Scientific Nutritional High Performance Academy of and you go, wow, look at that. It says clinical research and have shown from the International Sports Medicine Nutritional High Performance Academy of the institution, and I'm just using, it's not that big, but you read it, research from this, and you think that must be a top level scientific association, or it might be high level laboratories run by high performance facilities at universities or government. And basically all it is someone who's come up with name their business that, which sounds really cool, and they basically can say whatever they want. And if they say clinical research shows, well, clinical says that it's not really proven, because if you really want something to be proven, you want to get it published in a peer-reviewed international research study. You want to get it published as an international study, not a clinical research. Because I'm here with my little dog Brutus, and I can do a clinical study in here, and I can call it Kman's International Sports Nutritional Performance Academy, and my clinical trials and my clinical research shows that if I give Brutus this supplement, Brutus runs a lot faster. I can make that claim, and no one can actually say I can't make that claim because it's not published, hasn't been reviewed by experts, it hasn't been looked at the pros and the cons, and someone will say you can't say that, and I can say what I want because it's basically a free world. So you've got to be careful of is make sure it's published in an international recognised scientific journal. You looked at all the research, make sure that you're not just reading some Dodgeville journals or some magazine or whatever it might be. I mean, you've got to be careful when you read something which is a claim from a magazine, and it says research shows this, and many times I've done this, and I've actually tracked the research of what they claim, and I've read the study, and what the study says is different to what they says. Because very few people will track the study, and I've used to do that a lot, particularly in my young days when I was in the high performance area of training Olympic level athletes when I had my company called Sports Elite. I'd read something, research shows us, that's great, but I'm not a pessimist, but I want to make sure I get to the truth. So I've actually gone and tracked that research study, got the study itself, and says, wait a minute, it doesn't actually say that. You're exaggerating it, or it's just not true. But very few people actually will go and research that, as you probably won't either, because you've got better things to do with your time. So where was it published, and does it include all the research? The other thing to consider is who did the study. Is there a vested interest, or is there a biasness? Now, when it comes to research, there's a number of people or groups who do research. It's been funded by a private organisation. Now, a lot of the time, people won't fund the research on a promise because they may not want the promise to be disproven because there's more money in the promise than there is in the facts. And I've seen that many times before, where people will say this, they give threads of truth from different studies, and they say this is the great product, but they won't want to really break it apart in the research facility, just in case it doesn't work and they can't make those claims anymore, where they're making those claims, making money now. So you just got to be careful that the who funded the study, and sometimes they'll fund it, then the researcher might be influenced by the funder, because they want to get more money to fund more research, because that's how research makes the money and does gets funded for the research. So you've got to be careful who funds the research, if there's a biasness there. You may also look at, is there a biasness in the researcher themselves? And all researchers are human, so we have emotions, and we will always be biased. I know when I did a study on the performance of the athletic performance by doing medicine ball training, because that was a common training tool, still to this day, but I realised there's no research in the world ever been published on does medicine ball training with power plyometric type activities work. So I did a study thinking that it did work, and that was my mindset. So I went in there, I guess that influence that I'm thinking it would be work. So I compared medicine ball training with traditional weight training. I didn't think traditional weight training would increase baseball throwing velocity, which I was working with the national baseball team at the time, but I thought doing plyometric medicine ball training would increase throwing velocity. And what I found after my study was the opposite. The medicine ball training didn't work, the weight training did work, and all of a sudden I was taken back and said, wait a minute, that went against my opinion. I was thinking it was an informed opinion, so I had to shift my mindset. However, some people may not shift their mindset, and they'll continue trying to prove something works even though it doesn't work. A colleague of mine many years ago did a research study on a topic, and we went to the same university, and his research study showed this outcome. But when he used to go and present and lecture, he said his study showed a different outcome. I said, why is he saying what his study's not stating? It's quite interesting. And then I realised he was just completely emotionally biased towards what he wanted to happen rather than what actually did happen. So yeah, research is not always black and white. As I said, it can be very grey, and it can be very misleading. So you've got to see where was the study, who actually did the study. Some studies are done by postgraduate students like myself when I did my masters. I found a topic of interest, so I did some studies. I did power training and performance training, but other people may do it on supplementation or whatever it might be, and they're done by postgraduate students. And they're always going to be biased, as we all are as humans, but hopefully they conduct the study with integrity. And who did the study? What did they find? So what did they find? And then you got to look at that something is not necessarily exaggerated. So then you may find if you read the study, it only showed a tiny difference, but the claim is, hey, it makes massive big promises based on a study that showed minor differences. So sometimes a result can be exaggerated, and you also got to look at the study and how it's conducted. How is the study conducted? And many times I've looked at research and said, yeah, that's great. And then you look at obviously at research they do an introduction which includes supposedly an unbiased literature review looking at all the research. Then they will look at how they're going to set up the study, which is called the methodology of the study. Then you have the results. I always go to the results because the results can't be interpreted. They're just the results. And then I can give different groups of people the same results, and they'll interpret it in different ways. And then you come to the conclusion. So the introduction and the conclusion can be influenced by the biasness of the researcher or whatever it might be. Look at the methodology, that's what they did, and sometimes most methodologies are flawed, and you have to see, is that methodology linked into me, how I live my life and my goal? And you may find that's not necessarily the case, and you look at the results, and the claims from the results might be exaggerated or might be the opposite. Interesting. Remember back in the 80s there was this supplement called Innocin, which was promoted as the steroid replacer. Take Innocin, this research shows it builds massive amounts of muscle, it increases your testosterone to increase muscle, yada 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 yada. And it was just big, and everyone was buying it at the time based on this current research. But when you actually went to the research to look at the research, it was very, very interesting. First of all, the research wasn't done on bodybuilders because we went crazy in the bodybuilding field, But the research, if you look at the methodology, the subjects were postmenopausal women. So they weren't bodybuilders, they weren't athletes, they were postmenopausal women, and they were looked at them going through menopause. And they looked at the effect of venison on the effects on how it affected postmenopausal or women going through menopause. And they studied a number of things, and their main thing they were looking at is levels of estrogen. So the purpose of the study was the effect of venison on estrogen. And when you actually read the conclusion, they found all these things about estrogen, because that's where women go through menopause, the drop in estrogen, and can venison maintain that level, whatever it might be. But there was in the conclusion, and Brutus is agreeing with me, my little puppy dog. In the conclusion, there's a one-line statement. It says, "And we observed a slight increase in testosterone in these postmenopausal women, or women going through menopause, but it wasn't significant. It wasn't that wasn't the purpose of the study. A slight increase in testosterone." And that one statement, all of a sudden, was used as the reason why we can take innocent, put it into the bodybuilding supplementation thing, and sell it for lots, and then make big promises. This is the steroid replacer. So that's where you look at the methodology. Well, that's not even related to menopausal women, bodybuilders. No. They were studying insulin, they were studying estrogen, and it's applied to testosterone. There's one comment about testosterone, and that was being blown out of proportion, and people would have thought, the consumers would have thought that they have all this research, they had all these bodybuilders in the labs, and they took insulin compared to steroids, and they got just as big as the steroid group. That didn't happen. It wasn't like that. It's a little tiny, miniature, microscopic fishing line thread of truth, but exaggerated in the market to make lots and lots of sales in supplements. And don't get me wrong, there are supplements do have good research behind it, but you've got to be not going to this naive. You're open-eyed and seeing that how sometimes the claim is not necessarily related to the population group they use in the study is not your population group. Another case which I remember was L-carnitine, which was a fat metabolizing supplement that people were buying, bodybuilders particularly. We needed to strip the fat. L-carnitine. It increases your metabolism of fat. It's the fat stripper and all sorts of stuff. And to this day, it's still used in lots of different things. And it used all this research. We're saying research shows, but if you look at the research, one of the research studies that were quoted, which I happened to read, the research was done. You ready for this? And this is for bodybuilders and elite athletes and these high performance. And you look at the study and you look at the methodology. The study wasn't conducted for bodybuilders or athletic performance or whatever it might be. It was actually conducted to look at the effects of L-carnitine on the aerobic function for post-surgery cardiac patients. So people who had heart surgery, obviously their health was right down, and they looked at taking L-carnitine as a supplement and found that there was a slight increase in aerobic capacity, a minor increase. But remember, their aerobic levels are way down, so there's a slight increase in aerobic fitness or aerobic metabolism by taking L-carnitine because of that one little tiny increase in a population group is completely unrelated to the ones I was selling it to. They said L-carnitine is a new way to increase cardiovascular fitness and strip fat and become an elite, and everyone was taking it based on that study. So some very exaggerated claims based on some very minor statistical increases, if any statistical increases in performance. So I'm not going to keep digging down there, because you got to be just be aware that this can happen, has happened, and will continue to happen, because there's a vested interest to sell lots of supplements, and notwithstanding, there are lots of supplements who have been proven to work, and it's not for me to tell you which ones do and which ones don't, because that's not the purpose of this session. The session is to get you to think rather than let other people do your thinking for you. I'm not here to teach you what to think. I'm here to teach you how to think, and that's what I say to all my graduates. Think for yourself, investigate, make an informed decision based on the facts, and then you will know how to apply them to you. So when it comes to research, you also look at, what does the research increase? What was the improvement in the research? You're thinking you're going to take something that's going to work on 10 kilos of muscle, but the research it showed a minor increase in muscle for people who are untrained, but you're an advanced trained, and they had a tiny increase, and you're expecting a massive increase. So, the two, it's like competing different species and different results. So you've got to be, cautious, I suppose, not in a dangerous way, but just be aware that, you know, you don't get your hopes so high based on the big claims when you actually read the research, and the research actually shows minor increases, if not sometimes no increases, or maybe not even increases. They were just a theoretical change in the hormonal environment in the body, and they say because of that hormonal change in the body, that means you're going to put on muscle. It didn't actually show put on muscle, it just shows that you get an increase in testosterone, like that study I said, the innocent increased testosterone. It didn't say put any muscle on. They didn't study, they weren't training, they weren't looking at muscle density, they were just increasing hormonal change. But that increase in testosterone all of a sudden got linked to, hey, if the testosterone increase on postmenopausal women, then there must be a massive increase in muscle for bodybuilders or elite athletes, whatever it might be. Which is, there's not even connection to the truth there. So research, does it actually work? And you've got to be careful that you don't use anecdotal evidence. You know, some guy says, I take this and look how big my arms are. Well, they may have been born with big arms, or they may have big arms because of other reasons. They might be taking other supplements you don't know about, ones that are not necessarily legal, that make them glow in the dark and make them, you know, put on lots of muscle size. And then they will say, well, I put all this muscle size on because of this supplement, but really they're taking this in the background and you don't know what they're taking there. They're taking some really performance enhancing drugs rather than just the supplements, but they give credit to the supplements, and that happens a lot. I've got, you know, 20-inch arms because I take this powder. Well, maybe you've got 20-inch arms because you take this performance enhancing drug, which is not necessarily legal if you want to go into the Olympics or whatever it might be. So just be aware that, for example, anecdotal, I know one of my favourite athletes is Michael Jordan, the greatest basketballer of all time. He was a superstar before he was wearing Nike, and he was a superstar before he drank Gatorade. So he was promoting, become Gatorade, big high performance, all that bit, but Gatorade didn't make him successful. He's just a sponsored athlete by Gatorade, made lots of money from being sponsored by Gatorade, made lots of money from Nike, which is his right, and there's nothing wrong with that. But just be careful that just because they wear that colour t-shirt, that's not the reason why they got the performance that they did. Yes, I train in a yellow t-shirt, therefore if you wear a yellow t-shirt, which I happen to be able to sell you one, then you'll get the results I'm getting. Well, there might be many other reasons why they're getting those results. So please don't be naive in that area. Following the biggest guy in the gym, well, there might be a number of reasons why he's the biggest. He was born big. He's probably been training 20 years, you've just started. He may do other things or take other things you're not aware of, but you think you're putting all your hopes on one little shortcut. And you know, when you take shortcuts, you end up going in circles, thinking that that's the magic pill, potion, or powder. Question 5, which I feel is the most important one, is there an alternative? Is there other ways that you can get the results that you want? For example, if I ask you this question, if you had to measure as a percentage, 100% means it's perfect, your lifestyle, your training, and your nutrition. So is your lifestyle conducive to the results that you want from health, fitness, training, muscle size, strength, performance, whatever? Is your training 100% conducive to getting the results you want? Is your nutrition 100% conducive to the results that you want? And if you're saying, well, maybe I'm probably around the 70%, or might be the 60%, when people start training, it might be down to 40%, it might be 80%. Well, you're 80% there in the mainstream things are going to make the biggest differences, which is your lifestyle, which is sleep and stress levels and relaxation and all that stuff. It's training, that you're training well, with good frequency, good intensity, with good recovery, with good performance, nutrition, you're eating healthy and nutritious foods and all that sort of stuff. And if you're 80% below or 90% below, then why would you go and spend your resources, financial resources, and try to get an increase in maybe 2, 3, 4, 1, 5% here, when you can automatically, just without any expense, any inconvenience, just change these things in your lifestyle that's going to give you a 20% increase instantly by changing those mainstream lifestyles. So if you can get the results by making lifestyle changes, then number one, you don't have to worry about whether it's safe or whether it works, or you have to worry about the research, because we know these things work. Because generally speaking, you'd want any form of supplementation is that when you've exhausted the main things that you can control, which is your lifestyle changes, nutrition and training, and you're still not getting the results you want, then you may explore other opportunities. For example, you might have a young bodybuilder who trains magnificently and eats and sleeps and lives and all bodybuilding, and he's still not getting the results. And now he may want to may explore other opportunities, and that's why many go down the path of performance-enhancing drugs, which may not be legal or ethical, depending on what you think, and they go to those last resorts. But until you've exhausted that, why would you go outside that? Because you can get greater changes. And sometimes people say, yeah, but you've got to be careful sometimes with taking supplements that you don't try to replace those lifestyle changes, because something that comes naturally from food or naturally good hard training or good natural rest and lifestyle, then that's all natural and that's how the body's been designed, rather than taking external influences that may work and may not work, but also may have side effects and may be contradictory. So I always say enhance or get what you know to the best you can get it before you go outside that mainstream. So you have to ask yourself, maybe an elite athlete where you really get into that performance, or you're fighting a disease and you've changed your life and you're doing all of those things, and then you're looking at some other things that will. I remember my father, for example, he was suffering from arthritis, and we explored some other things. He says, do these work? And I said, well, I don't know, because the research is not conclusive. The research probably says it doesn't work, but that doesn't mean it does work, because there's the research that says it doesn't work. There wasn't a lot of research on it. But if it worked, then it would be beneficial. So why not give it a go and see what happens? Because he lived a very healthy lifestyle. He was active. He was in retirement, so he was pretty stress-free. And so he had everything in place, and we explored other things to see if it made any difference. And I'm going to come to that. But my point here is, the question is your lifestyle, are you maximizing your lifestyle changes in nutrition, training and lifestyle? Are you maximizing that to get the best results there? And that may save you a bit of inconvenience or money by going outside that. But going outside that, trying to make up for your lack of discipline or lack of organisation, says, yeah, but my lifestyle is not really conducive to that. Well, maybe you should fix up your lifestyle, because you only get one life, and if you're detrimenting your life, your health, by your lifestyle, and you're thinking that you can take a few little pills, powders and potions on the side to make up for it, I think most of the time you're going to be a little bit disappointed. You might be better off just changing your life and get out of that and get into a healthy life. That way you may need to have to explore these other alternatives for you. So lifestyle, what is it out of 100? And if it's can you change it, and you're going to get best results from it before you even investigate other opportunities. And again, that's your choice. I'm not living your life. You know more than me. What changes can you make in your life to be better than what you are to get what you want? That leads me to number 6, which is the cost, because making changes in your lifestyle may not cost you anything. Changing the way you live and your stress levels and relaxation and recreation and stuff like that, and decrease the stress, and changing the way you eat, you may actually save money. Giving up the cigarettes or reducing the alcohol or the junk food or whatever it might be, and starting to do some good quality training which doesn't cost anything. So these things aren't really going to be, they're actually quite cost effective. You get a great return on investment. Now, when you go to the alternatives, when you look at supplements, they're going to cost. And there's, because nothing in life is free, particularly dreams. They all have a price tag, or hope that has a price tag. So you're paying for, obviously, the bigger the promise, sometimes the bigger the cost. So you're going to throw some money at that, and you have to say, look, is that the best place for me to put money, or do I put that money, A, save it for other things, or be invested into that mainstream changes I can make, or do I put it into pills or powders or potions or whatever it might be? And that's your choice, again, depending on where you want to put your money. So yes, you don't want to be wasting money. You don't want to be taking things that don't work, that end up being flushed down the toilet anyway, because your body doesn't absorb it, it doesn't use it, and you're just throwing it away. But if you do come to that and you do say this does work, is it worth the money? Now, and that's all relative to how much you earn. If you only earn $400 or $500 a week and you have to put $100 a week towards this, you say, is that really what I really want. Do I really want to put that money, my financial resources to create a financial strain here? Now, if you're an elite athlete and you're on millions of dollars a year, spending a lot of money on all of this other stuff is relative. Everything's relative. Is it really worth it? Are you getting a return on it? Or is there a better use for your money? And you may also ask, sometimes people will be selling them because they make money out of it. And you say they have an invested interest to sell me a promise because they're making money out of my ignorance and my naivety, or maybe stupidity. But I'm sure by now you're not going to be that person, because you're going to do your own investigation, do your own information collecting, and make an informed decision. So how much money you put to these things is completely up to you, as long as you feel good about it. It's sad that sometimes it does cost a lot of money, and that stops people from doing what they want to do. I remember I was talking to a young lady who was a bodybuilder, and I said she doesn't bodybuild anymore. She says, why not? She says, well, because I can't afford it. I says, well, how much does it cost to train, get into shape, enter a competition and compete? She says, well, I can't afford the supplements because I got to spend $200 in supplements. Well, that may not be the case, and isn't it shown that she's not bodybuilding now because you can't afford the supplements? Well, you can bodybuild. I've trained many bodybuilders, and they've not had to rely on supplements, and some of them have taken supplements, and that's their choice. And I have no challenge with that, because that's their money and that's where they want to put it. That's completely up to them, as you are as well. But when you go through this process, as we've gone through, you now make that financial decision. Am I going to throw money at hope? Am I going to throw money at facts? Am I going to throw money at claims or promises? And I've made an informed decision, and I'm going to throw how much I'm going to throw at that. And that may depend on two things. A, if you're an elite athlete, you're going to be quite happy to spend as much money as you can to win that gold medal, or whatever it might be. If the general population, you may say, well, maybe for what it's promising, or what I'm getting and what I'm spending, there's not a good return on investment. So you have to ask that ultimate question: what is the return on investment for you, and how important is that to you, and how does it make you feel? And can you live with that and go, yes, that was a good investment? So the ultimate question is the last one, which is test and measure. But you only get to that once you're satisfied with the first six. One being, yes, I'm satisfied, I know why I want to take it, and it's connected to the what, and I have lots of reasons to take it. Number two, it makes common sense. Yeah, the claims that they make, yeah, they're reasonable, they make common sense, they're not way out of this planet, out of this world type claims. Number three is, yes, from what I see, it's quite safe to use, and it's not going to be detrimental to my performance or my health. Number four is, yes, there's enough evidence to suggest that it works, or it could work, or if done appropriately for me, it could work for me. I can see what could work for me, or my target market, or who I am, or my population group, and I can see that it could work, it will work, it might work. Enough there to go to the next step to say, well, yes, it could work. Then to the stage where, I can look at it works, and the cost of it, or my lifestyle, which is the next two questions, is my lifestyle is really conducive to getting the results. I have a great lifestyle, I eat well, I sleep well, I train well. All of them are really, really up there. Therefore, I've exhausted all those mainstream ways to get the performance, and because of my results that I want, it justifies the investment on the money I'm prepared to pay for it, because the outcomes will be really meaningful to me, and I won't be thinking about any wasted money or not having that money. So the cost, the return on investment is appropriate. Then when you've gone through all of that, and you're happy and you're content and you're satisfied and you're at peace with yourself with that, and you're not just relying on a miracle or someone else's miraculous influence on you, or some big massive promise, you've gone through that and say, okay, I'm going to give this a crack. And now it's the test and measure. It means I'm going to take it and I'm going to apply it to me and how I train, how I live, and how I eat to get the results that I want. And I'll test and measure. It means I'll give it a crack and I'll measure the results. Give it a crack, measure the results. Now, sometimes there can be a placebo effect. It means if you think it works, you'll make it work by making some underlying changes. For example, I see this a lot in young guys who go and buy muscle powders, whatever it might be, and they spend $100 on a tub, and they spent the money. Therefore, now they have this emotional connection to the powder, because they spent the money, they made the commitment, they made the decision. Therefore, they start to subtly start changing other things in their life, whether it be consciously or unconsciously. They start eating better, they start sleeping better, they start training more, they start training harder, they start training with focus and intensity, and all of a sudden they start putting on muscle and they think, wow, that muscle powder works fantastic. So the question is, was it the muscle powder that gave you the results, or was the muscle powder a trigger that made you consciously or unconsciously make some other changes in your life that led you to putting on that muscle? And you could argue that it doesn't really matter, because even if it's a psychological trigger, it got to create some physiological changes and create some habitual changes in your life to get the result. But it may not have been the muscle powder. It just means that you made that decision, you spent money on that decision, so you're emotionally connected to that decision. Therefore, you're going to make it work because you spent the money. And some people do that. Like some people, they make a relationship work even though it's a toxic relationship, because they made the decision, I'm going to make this work if it kills me, and sometimes it almost does. So you've got to understand that sometimes there might be a placebo effect in that. When I shared before with my father, who had arthritis, we tried a certain supplement to reduce the pain, the inflammation of the arthritis, because other things weren't necessarily working the way he wanted to. He tested, measured, and got to the stage where I said, oh, how's it going for you? Is it working? He says, well, what's interesting is that I'm quite forgetful, so sometimes I forget to take the supplement, but the days I forget to take the supplement doesn't make any difference to my day when it comes to arthritis. So at first I thought it worked, but ultimately when I forgot to take it, I realised it didn't really work anyway, and that's not right or wrong. He tested, measured it, and found that there was no positive changes in that, but he gave it a crack, and we went on to other things anyway. So you may want to get to the stage when you've gone through those first 6 questions and you're satisfied with the answers to those questions to yourself. Don't worry what other people think. It's your life. You can make your own decisions. You're a big person. And then you go to the stage of testing, measuring, and see how that works out with you. But always keep that open mind. Be aware that might be a placebo effect in there. And you may say, well, maybe if I'm getting the results, maybe I remove that now and keep going what I'm doing with those life changes, or that forced me to do some life changes or some training changes, nutritional changes, then I might be able to save money on that. But it's a good thing that got me going. Anyway, so it's funny, many times we make it work because we're invested emotionally in it, and sometimes financially in it, and sometimes we want to prove it right because we think it's right. And that's not right or wrong, that's completely up to you. So these are just a whole bunch of questions, and you may never get to the truth, but that doesn't mean you don't seek the truth and try to get close to the truth. And I don't believe there is always absolute truth. You just keep trying to get closer to it and closer to it and closer to it. As I do as an exercise professional, I try to go in there with virgin eyes, uninfluenced by my emotions, uninfluenced by my opinions and my beliefs, uninfluenced by other people's or being accepted by other groups. I go in there and says, if I didn't know what I know, what would I actually see and what would I actually do? And that's a great question. Sometimes it's going to wipe your mind blank and then look at what it is, not what you think it is, not what you want it to be, and not what other people are telling you it is. You have to work that out for yourself by clearing the fog in this noisy world of opinion, noisy world of voices, noisy world of beliefs and convictions, and noisy world of promises and miracle workers out there, and you have to live your life based on your own decisions. But make sure they're informed decisions and they're your decisions, and you can take ownership, but never hold too long onto a decision if you can make a better decision to move on to the next better decision. Because in life, we have limited life and we have unlimited decisions.